today on Rappler. Former President Estrada says he regrets supporting Senator Trillanes a day after Trillanes' word war with Senate President Enrile.
If the mining industry in its entirety were to shut down today, the world would just stifle a yawn. Said, oh, that's interesting.
Felix Mining Chairman Manny Pangilinan says the government changed the rules in the middle of the game.
So people are very sensitive to it, and we have to be sensitive to that.
Right. And Ayala Corporation Chairman Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala says the telecommunications industry is dealing with the surge in data. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Former President Joseph Estrada comes out swinging against Senator Antonio Trillanes. A day after Trillanes' word war with Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, Estrada blasts Trillanes as arrogant, an ingrate, and, quote, out of his mind. Estrada is a close ally and party mate of Enrile in the Puwersa ng Masang Pilipino, or PMP. In a phone interview with reporters, Estrada says his head got so big, it's a good thing it can still fit in the elevator. The former president says he regrets supporting Trillanes in his 2007 senatorial bid under the genuine opposition. Trillanes ran for senator while in jail for plotting coups against the Arroyo administration. Yes, that's one of my biggest mistakes, supporting that kind of man, Estrada says. Fame got to Trillanes' head, and now he is maligning, in his words, respectable people like Secretary of Foreign Affairs Albert Del Rosario. Estrada asks, has he done anything? He adds Trillanes is not even respected by his fellow soldiers. Trillanes accuses Enrile of being a lackey of former President Gloria Arroyo. Senator Bongbong Marcos distances himself from Senator Trillanes' decision to bolt the Senate majority coalition. Marcos and Trillanes are members of the Nacionalista Party. Marcos denies text messages saying he is behind Trillanes' move and that he plans to install Senator Ralph Recto as the new Senate president. Marcos says he just laughed when he saw the text messages. He said the, quote, analysis was far-fetched and makes no sense.
Nakita ko eh. Layo naman ng analysis niya, no? Maliwanag na walang alam yung taong nagsabi nun. Because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Sinasabi, it is an NP move. Eh kung NP move, bakit si Trillanes lang ang lumipat? O it's a coup against, wala namang nangyari. Wala namang pinag-usapan na change of leadership. The entire episode yesterday, was an act of an individual senator, clearly, because there's no sea change in the leadership or in the agrupations amongst the senators.
Senate President Enrile accuses Senator Trillanes of making an issue out of the division of Camarines Sur just, quote, to cover his ass. He also denies former President Gloria Arroyo called him to railroad the bill dividing Camarines Sur into two provinces. Arroyo spokesperson Elena Horn says the former president never talked to Enrile about it. In a privileged speech Wednesday, Trillanes says the split of the province will supposedly benefit Arroyo's son, incumbent Camarines Sur Representative Dato Arroyo. But Enrile says Trillanes only wants to divert attention from his alleged backdoor deals with China at the height of territorial disputes over Scarborough Shoal. He says Trillanes pushed for a bilateral approach to the problem instead of the Philippine government's multilateral framework. Enrile calls the senator a, quote, coward and questions his loyalty to the country for favoring China. Trillanes' party mate Senator Pia Cayetano defends Trillanes. In a tweet, Cayetano says, Senator Trillanes may be many things to different people, but a coward and a traitor to the Filipinos? Never. While senators fight in Manila, businessman Manny Pangilinan tells Rappler Trillanes is wrong. Pangilinan's name was mentioned in the word war between Senate President Enrile and Senator Trillanes. If Enrile is correct about Philippine Ambassador to China Sonia Brady's notes, Pangilinan says Trillanes is lying. It's all falsehood. Enrile says, according to the notes, Mr. Pangilinan and Foreign Secretary Albert Del Rosario wanted to create an event and Trillanes accused the two of, quote, manipulating a war condition to divert attention from Reed Bank. A Pangilinan-led group is currently exploring gas deposits at Reed Bank in the South China Sea that China says is part of its territory. Pangilinan denies a deal has been signed with Chinese state-owned oil firm China National Offshore Oil Corporation. Felix Mining Chairman Manny Pangilinan says the Padcal mine tailings incident was an unfortunate act of God. He says it slashed by more than half the projected 4 billion peso earnings of the company. He says Felix chose to do the responsible thing and remain transparent about the accident.
For the longest time, Felix was the poster child for responsible mining, but the Padcal mine happened. How?
The accident acquires the character of force majeure because, nature acting on its own or on her own really, we believe caused a particular accident. Of course, typhoons also cause Meralco wires to go down and even PLDTs and smarts networks to go down. The discharge happened at around 11 p.m. of July 31st session, and at the end of it, I told Yules, we don't want to compound the problem of the pond and the discharge. Why don't you shut down the mine? And he agreed. It dawned on us that that's the most prudent thing to do, and we did. And the mine has been shut down since August 1st to this day, and will probably be shut down till the end of the year until we're able to really develop a viable alternative and solution to the discharge. And the following day, we went public with the problem. It is likely we will condemn the pond. We don't want to take a risk on the continued usage of the pond.
What does that mean financially for Felix now?
Well, it's setting aside the penalties that may be imposed on us. It's severe. It's substantial as well. We had forecasted profits for this year of about 4 billion pesos. It's likely to drop to something between 1.5 to 1.7.
Pangilinan echoes the sentiments of the mining executives that the Executive Order 79, the Mining Executive Order, and the IRR do not provide the climate of consistency needed by the industry.
At the end of the day, Maria, it's really a question of what is the bias, what is the direction of policy towards mining, and if I had my druthers, I would prefer that be clearer. Because if the bias is not for mining, then so be it. If the mining industry in its entirety were to shut down today, the world would simply stifle a yawn. Said, oh, that's interesting. Will it have an impact on global metal prices? Absolutely not.
Have the rules changed in the middle of the game?
I believe they have. Yeah, I think it's an attempt to articulate further what the policy should be on mining, and I think the good side about it is that it has raised issues.
On Talk Thursday, Ayala Corporation Chairman Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala says the Philippine economy has hit, quote, a very exciting stage.
We are one of the 3 largest growth countries in the world right now. China still remains strong, even though it's slowed down. And then Indonesia is just slightly ahead of us, but in the first half of this year, growing at 6% puts us actually at the very top of the categories in the world. So,
Zobel de Ayala also talks about how technology is changing business models and pushing infrastructure development. He says the telecommunications industry is dealing with the surge in data and will bring infrastructure to the level where it satisfies demand.
Compare, right now, we've got irate customers from both sides complaining about infrastructure. Is this a period of growth when demand exceeds capacity? I mean, we saw this happen in the United States.
The best way to look at it is telecommunications become a very personalized thing. So people feel it very strongly. In other words, you don't go through any day now without referring to your phone, using your computer, accessing information.
Need it for everything.
So people are very sensitive to it, and we have to be sensitive to that.
Right.
So I understand where sometimes the frustration comes from. I think what people have to understand, though, is that given the plethora of new ways of communicating, the fact that those costs are coming down, has really made the data surge tremendously high. In other words, there's massive demand flowing through the system now. The telecommunication companies have to adjust to this new reality. So everyone's dealing with this surge in data. People are being able to access it and use it much more so because of the price points that have come down. It is our job, I guess, as infrastructure builders to adjust to it. And I think we are as an industry. There's a lot of money being put into it, probably more than any other industry in the Philippines. And I think people don't appreciate that. It's not yet perfect, but a great deal is going in. And I think the industry will come up to bat and be able to give people what they need. And I think that'll be felt far sooner rather than later.
An actress in the anti-Islam film that sparked protests in the Muslim world sues the film's producer. Actress Cindy Lee Garcia says Nakula Baseli Nakula, an Egyptian Coptic Christian and fraud convict, duped her into thinking the film is about ancient Egyptians. Garcia says her life is now in danger. U.S. media say Nakula wrote and produced the film using the pseudonym Sam Basil. YouTube extends its restrictions on the same anti-Islam video to Saudi Arabia. In a statement, YouTube parent company Google says the film would be restricted, quote, in countries where it's considered illegal by local authorities. This covers India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Saudi Arabia. Google's announcement comes a day after Saudi Arabia threatened to block YouTube if Google did not respond to a request to restrict the video. France braces for a backlash from Muslim protesters after satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo published cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad, including 2 drawings showing him naked. Officials say they will step up security at its embassies and ban demonstrations. Sunni Islam's highest authority in the Vatican's official newspaper condemned the publication of the cartoons. Charlie Hebdo's editor Stéphane Charbonnet describes those angered by the cartoons as, quote, ridiculous clowns. He accuses the government of pandering to them by criticizing him for being provocative. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 4, lawyers say they will challenge a new Philippine law that makes electronic libel a criminal offense. Lawyer and UP professor Harry Roque says this means that unlike ordinary libel complaints, which are often brought against printed newspapers, any Twitter and Facebook user is now liable for prosecution. Roque says the law violates the freedom of expression. He says, quote, we will see the Pinoy administration in court on this one, and we will prevail. At number 6, NASA's Curiosity rover will study its first Martian rock Friday, September 21, more than a month after landing on the red planet. The science team plans to have Curiosity pause for a few days in order to perform the mission's first, quote, contact science. The rover will use instruments on the vehicle's robot arm to photograph and analyze a pyramid-shaped rock. At number 8, the Philippines commemorates the 40th anniversary of the declaration of martial law on Friday, September 21. Victims of the Marcos dictatorship have been talking to students about the human rights abuses that followed the declaration of martial law. Anti-Marcos activist Susan Quimpo says many students barely know anything about this dark period in Philippine history. And at number 10, gadget lovers flood Apple with pre-orders and set up camp outside the company's real-world stores, waiting for the iPhone 5, set for release on Friday. People started lining up outside the Apple store in Manhattan last week, and similar vigils have begun in other Apple stores around the world. Apple says it received more than 2 million orders for its new iPhone 5 in the 24 hours after it began pre-sales online on September 14th. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has its own mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel, and your vote will go to the mood navigator at the middle of the front page of Rappler.com. If you take a look, it chooses the top 10 stories that have gotten the most number of votes. And let's look at today's stories. Hashtag Talk Thursday, Brave New Philippines with Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, 54% inspired, 17% happy. A different note from the majority of the stories today. MVP, Manny Pangilinan, Trillanes is lying. This is connected to the word war between Trillanes and Enrile. 62% angry. And cybercrime law, see you in court, Pinoy, one of our stories today. 77% angry. Those votes going to the mood of the day today. Most people are angry. Well, that's Rappler's Newscast for today, Thursday, September 20th, 2012. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.